What's up, friends? Today we get to take a look at NECA's Defenders of the Earth. Well, two of them at least, and then their supervillain. We've got the Phantom, Flash Gordon, and Ming the Merciless, otherwise known as Ming the Fabulous. For those of you who don't know, Defenders of the Earth was a cartoon in the 80s that paired up a bunch of King Features Syndicate-owned superheroes like the Phantom and Flash Gordon there against Ming the Merciless, who is originally a Flash Gordon villain, and King Features is one of those comic book companies that is not Marvel or DC for once. So NECA finally gets to do some superheroes that are not Marvel or DC for once, but they have reused, for all three of these guys, the same superhero buck that they used on their really hard-to-come-by Superman, Batman, Green Lantern figures that were packaged with Alien and Predators back in the day. Anyways, let's take a look at the Phantom first of all. Now, the Phantom is a superhero who was created in 1936, and he's actually an identity that's passed on from father to son each generation, so that people think he's immortal when he's actually not. Like, they kill one, and then the son just takes over the role and puts on the costume, and I guess the son always has the same height and build and facial and hand features. He's never, like, really overweight that people could put together. It's two different guys. Doesn't really make sense when you think about it, but he didn't actually have immortal supernatural powers, at least not in the comics, but in the show, he could, like, summon the power of animals and stuff. And he's actually the first superhero ever to wear tights and have whited out eyes in his domino mask. 2 years before Superman, 3 years before Batman did that. How cool is that? So NECA's got a costume that's got skin tights and whited out eyes on a domino mask, pretty faithful to the comics and Defenders of the Earth, the cartoon, because the Defenders of the Earth cartoon was pretty darn faithful to the comic books. Now, in that cartoon, you could always see the skull on his belt, and NECA got that there, but there weren't these little lines. They added that for the card art and the sculpt on the actual belt, I guess. But what he never had in the cartoon, but did have on the card art for the old Galoob figures that the Defenders of the Earth toys came on, were his rings. Now, the Phantom's rings, if we could focus on them there, are actually pretty important. The right one has a little skull in it, and the left one, it's pretty tough to see, but it has like 4 P's. There we go, that's pretty focused. They kind of just make like a cross shape, but they're supposed to be like little P's for Phantom. And the left one is like the ring he would use to like punch his allies and leave a good mark on them. It's for allies. I guess he would like leave it in wax or something. I don't know. Just let them know like, oh, the Phantom's been here and this is a friend. But the right one, the one with the skull, is the one that would like, he'd punch a bad guy and then that would leave a mark on him. So it's like, oh, that's a bad man. The Phantom punched him. Now, those rings never show up in the actual animation of the show, but they are in the official artwork related to that show and definitely in the comics. So NECA got that detail. That is very good. The belt, it's black, just like the show. Everything's pretty darn accurate. I like the head. What's really cool is they've got this sort of printed on stubble, and like, man, the paint is good on the head. Like, look at the lips. The lips are a different tone, and it's very subtle. It blends very well. And I do think it's kind of weird, the shape of the eyes, but like, this is how the Phantom was drawn a lot, so they got that pretty correct. It's pretty darn accurate, actually. The boots, also black, just like in the cartoon and the comics. What's funny is, I mean, like, he's purple, which is not quite how they use in the comics, because it's originally a news strip character, and it was like black and white, and the creator wanted him to be gray, but eventually he became purple, and that's what he's known for, and that's what he is in the Phantom movie. Yes, there's a Phantom movie from the 90s out there. Go check it out. You can watch it in black and white, and it's a lot better because he's less purple, but I mean, he is supposed to be purple these days. He was purple in Defenders of the Earth cartoon show, so NECA got it right. Next up, Flash. Hey, not that Flash. Hey, that's more like it. Flash Gordon was created in 1934, and he's basically a college student who gets rocketed off to Ming's planet, Ming the Merciless, who we're taking a look at next, and goes on a bunch of adventures trying to defeat him. Pretty much the same body, belt, and boots sculpt as the Phantom, except the shoulders up here have been retooled a little to have these extra gold shoulder pad pieces, and then this is part of the little collar piece, and these are just rubber that have been glued down onto the upper torso part, but pretty good addition. It's pretty imperceptible, and it's a separate piece there. Flash also has no rings on his hands, and he's married in the cartoon, so you kind of think he would have one, but we never saw it in the animation or any official artwork, so it is accurate for them not to be there. Now, on Flash's belt is this little lightning bolt Flash logo, which, looks suspiciously like another lightning bolt, but I mean, whatever. Sometimes in the cartoon, you couldn't see this, but it's definitely supposed to be there, and sometimes you can see it in the cartoon, and they're in official art and everything, so NECA got that detail correct. What's less correct, though, is the belt and the boots. In the cartoon, they're much more like a bluish-gray color than, this pure flat black, but other than that, everything's totally accurate. They got the collar button to the side up there, and he just looks terrific. That face sculpt, it really looks like 1930s comic book Flash Gordon, and kind of what the art style they were trying to emulate in Defenders of the Earth cartoon. This doesn't really look like, animated. It's much more detailed than, Phantom's head sculpt. Like, could come off a little cartoony, but that was how he was drawn. This looks much more like a really cool classic 30s comic book look. And last up, friends, we have Ming the Merciless. Ming the Fabulous! Yeah. Ming first appeared in 1934, just like Flash Gordon. He's Flash Gordon's main villain, and he was originally a kind of Yellow Peril type character, but, for the Defenders of the Earth cartoon, they just made him green, and so they made him green here on the NECA figure too, and he's an alien anyway, so it makes sense in the first place. Now, someone at NECA had a ton of fun making this guy because, in general, he's just got a ton of detail, and oftentimes more detail than the cartoon ever showed. First up, on the face, Ming's goatee did not split into two parts in the Defenders of the Earth cartoon, but NECA sculpted it that way to go for a kind of a Fu Manchu look, I guess. And then this rubber piece is all separate and just like, glued down to the top of the chest and on the neck there. It did not have this triangular piece in the cartoon. It just had this circular piece, which was purple, same color as the cape, and it just seemed to be, part of the cape, but NECA interpreted it differently here. But I'm okay with that. Now, this little chest piece dangling down here is rubber, and it never had so much detail in the cartoon, but it did have that in official artwork, and so NECA got it correct. Now, the shoulders over here have these black things with lines on them, almost like little snake pieces. I mean, they're not snakes, they're not supposed to be that, but it's like a little armor bit, kind of shaped like a snake. It's a ring that goes over the shoulder, and it's a separate hard plastic piece that's like been affixed to the, torso here. I think it's been like pegged in or glued in, something. It seems like it's, because this is a reused buck if you just look under the rubber there. But my point with these is, these weren't in the cartoon. It was just his cape ruffled over, so why not go into the trouble of tooling this extra little bit when it's inaccurate to the show, frankly, is a little bit beyond me, but hey, it looks cool. Like I said, someone had fun making this thing and adding detail to it. Oftentimes, they were giving it more detail than he had in the show, because in the show, he didn't have these gauntlets. He just had sleeves that ended in little cuffs, so, I mean, hey, this looks a lot better, honestly. Another difference in the show, these two little belts that go over this symbol thing on his, these two little lines that go above and below the belt, they were pretty much gold in the show with like a small black line running through them, but NECA made it like 50% gold, 50% black. I don't think it's really any better or worse, honestly. It's just not accurate to the show. And then this dragon you could never see in the show or any official artwork, so goodness knows where that came from. Maybe they read some, old Flash Gordon comic strips and said, well, a dragon's got to be there. Or maybe it's just like, hey, he's an Asian type villain trope. Let's give him Asian symbol, Asian looking dragon, whatever. Now, paint on all three of these guys is ridiculously clean, but they all share one problem, unfortunately, which is pretty common with NECA figures, which is that the pegs are one color throughout, and where they should be a different color, they are painted, and the paint's just going to rub off, so I don't know why you even bothered, frankly, NECA, because, oh, look, there's the purple on the front now. So yeah, Phantom's pegs are all in his purple body color. Flash's are all done in red, which is unfortunate in places where it should obviously be a different color. And Ming's pegs are all done in the dark blue of his legs, which, creates a little mismatch here and there on the arms, and of course with the wrist joints there too, and makes me worry for every other part that should be a different color and has been painted, because the paint will just rub off over time. I don't know why you don't just make certain pegs black, certain pegs green, certain pegs light blue, NECA. But other than that one issue, which honestly seems like a case of poor planning to me, the paint on these guys is amazing! The rings on Phantom's hands, very clean, of course, and then the body's just cast purple. Can't really complain about that. I like the gloss on the belt and the boots, and then the little skull logo there is very clean. His face, I think I said before, I'm impressed with the photo print job of the stubble. It's subtle, but it's there, and it looks good to me. I think, it could work with a sculpted stubble too, with like they made it like a little bit porous, textury, I don't know, but then the lips and the eyes, oh man, and he's even got like rosy cheeks up there. Really good paint, really clean on Phantom there. But he is pretty plain compared to Flash and Ming. Now Flash, I love the face, because unlike the Phantom, Flash doesn't have whited out eyes, so you get to see like a little eye detail in there, and it's printed on, but it looks so good. They even got highlights in there, the little white spot. And then same thing with the lips, like it's just an off peachy color, and then I think he's got rosy cheeks too, but I'm impressed with the hair. Like, what is this, a dry brush on the hair? Like, it is so heavy. It's like a dark blonde and then a light blonde on top, and then it just looks wonderful. But the coolest thing about Flash's paint job, and I don't know how well it comes off on camera, is that his body is not just red. There's two things going on here. First of all, like, he has this dark, I don't want to call it a wash or anything. It looks like airbrushing. He has these darker spots that look airbrushed on in the muscles and at the cuffs especially, but then on top of that, he's not just cast in boring old red, there are like little sparkly glitter bits in there, and I think you can see on the chesticles, the pectoral muscles, best, how there's like a little grainy texture. It's like sparkly. It looks amazing. I guess because it's like he's from outer space, but that paint is really solid on Flash. And then Ming's just fabulous. What do you want? No, the paint on Ming is really good. Like, so many intricate details, so many spots where it could have gone wrong. Like I said before, I don't think it's accurate for it to be 50-50 gold-black on the ropes above the big rubbery piece here. But, you know, whatever. Everything else. It's got the same shiny gloss boots. And the face. The face is really good. It's got the green, of course, because they couldn't have it be like, you know, flesh tone and them say, oh, he was racist because people don't have pointy ears and beards like that. But I mean, man, look at the eyes in there. They got dark rings around the eyes. And then Ming did have red eyes in the cartoon. It's a little tough to see, but like, yeah, red eyes right there. Really awesome. Everything is applied so cleanly. Maybe the only thing that's not like 100% clean is like his ring there on the finger. Like, that was a little bit sloppy, but that's such a small little detail. It's kind of to be expected, honestly. It looks pretty good, all things considered. And then, you know, just the overall effect. It just looks really amazing, especially with like this satiny red velvet cape on him and the purple. Oh my gosh, the way the light hits this Ming is just fabulous. I mean, Phantom's pretty plain, but I'm pretty torn between who has the best paint job between Flash and Ming over here. Now for articulation, friends, everyone pretty much has the same body, so they all pretty much get the same articulation. Everyone has a ball joint head. They go so far up, so far down, spin all the way around. Everyone has hinge and swivel shoulders. They're a little squeaky there, and they can spin all the way around. Cuts at the biceps. Double elbows and hinge and swivel wrists. Ab crunch gets so far forward and so far back. And swivel at the waist goes all the way around, of course. On Ming, the rubber piece does not get in the way, thankfully. And then everyone has these old style NECA hips because these are reused for the old superhero bucks that those are a few years old, and they used old hip systems where, you know, one hip is pegged into the other, and then this crotch piece may one day, you know, snap apart, and then the hips may just kind of like fall out like NECA hips are sort of prone to do. So I wish they had the updated hip system, but like, I mean, these do work well when they're not falling apart. They also swivel at the tops of the thighs, get double knees, swivels at the tops of the boots, hinge and pivot ankles, and toe articulation right there. Ming is unique in that he gets a bendy wire in the cape, which is really neat because it lets you bend it to make it look like it's billowing in the breeze. You can just, you know, kind of wrap it around and pose it like it's draping there on him evil-like. The wire goes all the way from the top and the bottom and the side there. So each figure pretty much comes in the same packaging with character-specific artwork in the front. At the bottom, the NECA logo done in the style of Galoob, who did the toys for the original animated series. And next to the artwork, we got their name with a little title underneath: The Phantom, the Ghost Who Walks, Ming the Merciless, and Flash, Savior of the Universe. And looking at the sides, we see each character has a number that they are in this wave. The Phantom is number 1, Flash is number 2, and Ming is number 3. You can also see that someone at the Target was nice enough to crumple up my package on the Phantom figure, but, you know, I actually mean that non-sarcastically, because if you don't know and you find these all crumpled up, it's usually done on purpose by fellow collectors to prevent scalpers from buying the box and, you know, reselling it with the figure inside and all that. But, you know, those of us who are willing to open the figures usually don't mind, so we'll buy it anyways. Other side of the package, we get little portraits down at the bottom with the figures' heads in them, and a cool Defenders of the Earth with a lightning bolt logo on the side there. Up at the top, we get the same Defenders of the Earth logo, but on top of the planet, which, you know, it's like the logo from the cartoon, and we get all the cartoon characters. I guess they can make Lothar and Mandrake the Magician eventually. Which you can totally tell from the back, because here's all the figures. They already have Mandrake the Magician and Lothar, you know, rolled out, and then we get a cool little bio. Ming the Merciless is the evil ruler of Planet Mungo. I don't know why they didn't, you know, put that for his little title, because Ming the Merciless, it's a little unique in that Ming, his name and his title are one and the same on the side, but his little, like, subtitle thing is, like, separate there, whereas the other characters, you know, didn't do that. It didn't say Savior of the Universe on the side there. Anyways, everyone has a biography right up on the back. There's the Phantoms if you want to read it, and Flash Gordon's, and Ming the Merciless. Up at the top in the little corner, it says, "Our duty is clear, the time is now. Fate has decreed that we are Defenders of the Earth." And strangely enough, it even says that for Ming the Merciless on his packaging. You know, he's not one of the defenders, he's the villain, you know. Also fairly unique for a NECA package, the credits are on the back in a little blue box here instead of, you know, at the bottom like they often are. Well, that's pretty much it for the outside of the packaging. Let's open this guy up, and there is one piece of tape on my Bennett Phantom box here. We'll just have to cut, and then the tray slides out super easy. The back card in there is just plain old yellow. And unfortunately, every figure has a bendy wire at the waist, and then plastic sock tie type things at the ankles. Now, why NECA didn't choose one or the other and just make it consistent, I don't know, but we'll unbend the one at the waist, and each figure is, just like that. Thankfully, it's not too twisted up. It's actually pretty easy, although these double sock type things are often a pain to cut. Well, wasn't too bad at all, actually. Now to get the other characters out. Pretty much the same deal with Flash Gordon. And same exact thing with Ming. Only slight difference is he has a hole in his tray to let his cape come through. So I very much like this packaging, friends. It's pretty simple. I'm thankful it's just got one piece of tape on the top and the bottom flaps, and it's like that's all you got to cut to get it open. Take note, McFarlane. I don't want to cut 3 pieces of tape every time I open one end. And it may not be as collector friendly as, some of their other, packages with like the Ultimate figures, which these are, pretty much just as expensive as. But hey, at least I don't feel bad about throwing this packaging away. So, that's a big plus. And yeah, it's weird the 2 different types of twist ties they're using, but like, I actually got it out pretty quick, so I can't complain too much. I'm pretty happy with it. Now, onto the accessories. Pretty much everyone comes with this gun, this little blast effect for it, and this big blast effect for it. And then on top of that, the Phantom over there gets an extra blast effect, this little guy named Zuffy, and 2 extra hands. Well, Flash Gordon comes with a sword and 3 extra hands. Then Ming gets his own sword, a Staff of Evil, and only 1 extra hand. So pretty good amount of accessories. Let's start by taking a look at what comes with the Phantom over here. Now, it of course makes total sense for the Phantom to come with a gun because he used them in the comic strips all the time. But I gotta say, I do kind of wish he had like a gun holster or like a hole in the belt and this had a little peg that you could like attach it on into. But I mean, NECA didn't do that, so whatever. The actual gun we got is actually really cool looking though, like some kind of ray gun. I don't remember them like using ray guns in the Defenders of the Earth show or anything. I mean, like the bad guys would shoot lasers all the time, but the actual heroes never really grabbed a gun too often, as far as I recall. Still, this gun looks so awesome. Like, I think it's got a lot of sculpted detail in it, which really looks sci-fi and cool. But on top of that, there is a really cool metallic indigo paint job on this thing and a dark wash that's all over, and it just looks spectacular, honestly. And the Phantom does come with 1 trigger finger hand that you can get the gun into. Just gotta squish those fingers open and slot the gun in between the thumb there, and you can get his index finger resting on the trigger, which is, it's a subtle sculpt in there. It doesn't have its own guard because the whole handle gets its own guard, but yeah, he's on there. And since we're looking at it, now's a good time to pop that hand out. The right hand is the trigger finger hand, and these things take some doing. And of course, once you get them, you can see the purple pegs there, and there was paint on the peg itself for some reason, I guess, but that's, obviously going to rip off. The alternate right hand with the trigger finger, NECA got that ring on there, by the way, the bad guy ring, and yeah, it's going to pay me to do this because I know that paint's coming off and it's going to be purple, but I mean, you don't really see it when it's in there anyways, so kind of don't know why they bothered to paint the peg itself, honestly. And yeah, now it's in there. Now it looks pretty good. Hinges just like the other one, but of course that paint will come off. Why do you have to do this, NECA? I know the reason, but like still, it kind of sucks, Still, that hand looks great holding that gun there. But still, if you want to look a little bit cooler, you can take this translucent blue blast effect that NECA was nice enough to include and just slot it over the tip. And there you go. Looks like he's firing the gun. You got yourself a little action effect there. You can even do the same thing with this much longer effect to make it seem like he's shooting a laser, And it just slots on there. I'm pretty surprised the way they constructed this, honestly. Like, I thought for sure this would just be like a long, peg that would peg into this smaller piece because the smaller piece looks pretty much exactly like this, but no, 2 separate pieces. One of them is definitely reused from the Green Lantern figure that they did, which is pretty impossible to get your hands on. And this would, well, it's sort of reused because we'll look at the next one, and this looks pretty close. The Phantom's the only one who comes with this. It looks pretty close to the blast effect we just looked at, but it ends in a peg instead of a hole that can go over this gun. And what you do with this is you plug it into Phantom's final alternate right hand, which just has a hole in it where the ring is. So, the ring is missing there, but it's okay because this pegs into there like he's shooting a beam out of the ring, and this is the part that's definitely 100% reused from Green Lantern, just, done in blue instead of green now. But it is a little odd on the Phantom, because as far as I know, he never really shoots lasers out of his rings in the comic strips, so, I thought the rings were just for, like, punching bad guys. And it's also pretty surprising in that, this didn't peg into the gun. Why didn't they build a gun with a peg hole and just let this peg on in, then it could peg into the hand and the gun, because really, you're never going to display this hand without the laser effect in it, so why not just make, these two one piece? And I know the answer is because they had to reuse this from Green Lantern, but then that goes back to my point of why doesn't this peg into the gun, and then you could have had this with a peg hole in and peg in, I don't know, so you could have short and long blast effects, and I don't know, but I'm quite glad they decided to go the extra mile on these accessories here. Last thing Phantom comes with is Zuffy, and Zuffy is pretty much just Gleek. He's a little annoying purple alien sidekick, and just like how Gleek was a little purple sidekick on Super Friends. Zuffy's actually short for Zuffoid, which is a native species on Ming's planet Mongol, and he comes with a little crystal, which, in the first episode is a crystal that Flash Gordon's wife died holding, and she put her essence or soul in it or something. It's kind of messed up, like, she pretty much died holding this and put her soul in it, and then, like, the Defenders were like, let's use that crystal to put her soul in our computer, which, whatever, it was a cartoon in the 80s, and Zuffy is the one who found the crystal in the first episode, so he comes holding that, and it is non-removable there. The sculpt in the paint, pretty much top-notch to how it looked in the show. It is even articulated, and when you move it, you can see purpley pegs. I mean, the difference is really stark there. I mean, like, it's the same purple as the paint that does the tuft of fur on the chest and the mustache there, even though most of the body is much more blue in color. So, odd choice, why not make the pegs blue? Because they're not in contact with the purple anywhere on here. But, I think I figured the reason is these are the same shade of purple, as Phantom has on his pegs. So, I guess what's going on at the factory is NECA's like, hey, we can only order the pegs for this one set in one color. And the Phantom's mostly, purple. So we'll paint the ones that are on the flesh colored and then just, call it a day. And Zuffy, it doesn't make any sense for him to come with the Phantom unless you think of that, like, oh, they're both purple, so we can order the purple pegs, pop them in this guy, they'll blend pretty well enough, honestly, it's not a big deal. But this explains so much, because it makes no sense for Zuffy to come with the Phantom. Zuffy is from Ming's planet, but he's not evil, so don't pack him with Ming, he's one of the Defenders, I guess. But he was found by Rick Gordon, Flash Gordon's son, so maybe pack him with Flash Gordon? Because he pretty much never hung out with the Phantom, or Flash Gordon, or Ming. He was always with, like, the kid on the show, Kashin. So, why pack him with the Phantom? The answer is purple pegs. Anywho, Zuffy's pretty impressive for what he is. He has a ball joint head, can look down and up, and if we pull it far up enough, we can see that the head is cast in a reddish-brown color in there, which is surprising since it's, it's just supposed to be purple and yellow on the outside there. The shoulders are hinge and swivel, and hips are on ball joints, as is the tail in the back there, which is good because you can swivel it on down and, make it a tripod that's super easy to stand up right there. But he can also stand up okay without the tail on the ground. It's just a little tricky because it, makes him a little bit back heavy. Not too bad, though. All right, on to Flash Gordon's accessories now. Same gun, same blast effects. Same issues with the paint on the pegs on the hands. But unlike the Phantom, Flash's left hand is the trigger finger, which means we can take it and plug it into the Phantom and have him go guns akimbo. But that peg in there will still be red. And he won't have his ring. And same thing goes for Flash. But then he'll be wearing the Phantom's ring for some reason. And have purple there too. Anyways, in addition to that trigger finger, Flash comes with 2 open grip hands, which I guess are for holding his sword. Now, I don't recall Flash Gordon using a sword in Defenders of the Earth cartoon too much, but he did use one in that Flash Gordon movie, only it was gold and sort of shaped like a hockey stick, whereas this is like a translucent yellow, and I guess it's supposed to be like an energy sword, sort of inspired by lightsabers from Star Wars, and that kind of makes sense because Star Wars was in turn inspired by Flash Gordon, so everything comes full circle now. Anyway, the hilt's just black with some silver and red details. It looks very clean. It looks pretty cool and space-agey in an old-timey way, which is perfect for Flash Gordon. But getting it into his hands, you gotta stretch the fingers on those open grip ones, and you gotta squish the pommel in. I wish they still do removable pommels. That makes it easier to get in the hand. But once it is in that hand on the left, it's kind of looser than I'd like, honestly. Let's try the right. Right hand has a wider grip, so it's easier to squish that pommel in, and then, it's even more loose. What the heck? Now, if you push it down into the fingers on the left hand, he does get a better grip, but it is still kind of too loose feeling for my taste, honestly. And these have got to be the sword hands because this trigger finger hand just ain't doing it for me either. Well, it is a pretty cool looking sword. I just wish he gripped it a bit better because this hand's like barely doing it for me, and then this hand's way too loose. I don't know why they even bothered to include that one. Now we get to Ming. Same gun, same blast effects. And this time mixing and matching the hands works even less well. But at least this time they have a purple peg to go with the Phantom. Next up, Ming comes with an evil sword. It has a very intricate design, a little red diamond at the top of the blade there, and a very fancy hilt, because Ming is a very fancy guy. Red lines in there are very clean. It's got a very vague dragon design. I guess it's like a dragon wing coming out there, but really just like intricate details, nothing too specific about the pommel. Now, I don't remember Ming ever using a sword in the cartoon, but, hey, NECA can do what they want, and I guess this is because, Ming did sword fights with Flash Gordon in the comic books and stuff and strips, and you just get the sword into his packaged right hand, which is the same one we'll use for the staff in a minute. And if it gets in there, man, does he look cool with that? That really goes with him. I mean, talk about evil emperor alien warlord, right? Next up, Ming has an evil emperor staff, and same color scheme, purples and reds and golds on a black. I don't remember this from the cartoon either, but this is included with the Galoob toy based on the first cartoon, and NECA just, updated the design pretty much. Really cool dragon head up top. Tongue has been painted gray for some reason. I mean, it's like red up at the top, and you think the tongue would just be red, but I don't know. I don't know the details of where this design came from. I can't speak to its accuracy. What I can speak to is how cool it is. Look, it's got little translucent fins up there, and then like this, the little circles, the gold circles there. That is a very retro 1930s future looking design. That is so cool looking. Just like the sword goes into that right hand. And wow, if that ain't an awesome looking evil emperor alien warlord, right? Ming's accessories are pretty cool. Now, as for the scale, friends, all three of these guys stand at about 7 inches tall or 18 centimeters. If you go to the top of their heads, which makes sense because they all share the same body, Ming would be a little bit taller at 7¼ inches if you go to the top of his collar thingy back there. As always, here they are next to my 6-inch Batman and Spider-Man, and some 7-inch NECA figures like Rambo and Commando, Robocop the Terminator, Alien, and Predator. So do I ultimately recommend NECA's Defenders of the Earth figures, friends?
Yes, 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 and more yes.
The sculpts on these are amazing! And it makes me so happy that NECA found a way to reuse the bucks from those DC figures that they did that are so hard to get now, because now I get to see what we were missing out on. And the paint is also spectacular. Maybe it's an issue with Ming that he's, not quite accurate to the cartoon, but what's not accurate about him is that they gave him more detail and made him look even cooler than the cartoon. So I love that, and I love the sparkly paint that Flash has. Maybe Phantom's a little plain compared to the other two, but, he's accurate to how he looks in the comics and in the cartoon, and he's such a cool character that that's just not an issue at all. Really, the things people are going to have an issue with are the price point on these and the paint rubbing off of the joints, because these guys are $30, which is kind of a lot. I mean, that's like what a NECA Ultimate figure costs, and these guys are not Ultimates, but, they kind of are. Like, NECA may have just released them in regular boxes, but the amount of accessories we get puts them on par with an Ultimate release, and the accessories are so cool, too. Now, the other gripe is that, well, it's kind of like an articulation thing. I mean, the articulation is very good on these, but they do use the old hip joint system, so, I mean, just be wary of that. Like, if you had bad luck in the past with legs snapping off at the hips of your NECA figures, just be warned, and, definitely check for, cracks at the bottom of the crotch piece if you're ever buying these guys used. But the bigger issue is definitely the paint rubbing off on the hinge joints at the wrists and the ankles, which, I guess was a necessity, and it's probably better to have like a little bit of a purple spot showing up on Phantom or Ming's wrist than, for all the pegs in the body to be, flesh tone and mismatched with the costume colors. I guess it's a necessary evil, but they don't really need to bother painting the pegs in the first place. I mean, it's just going to come off anyway, so what's the point? Still, these are killer figures, friends! So I say go out and get them. And until next time, peace out, YouTube.